After 9 years of friendship, I thought I knew everything about Christina. We'd shared apartments, secrets, and enough wine to fill an Olympic swimming pool. But 2 weeks before her wedding, I discovered a side of her I never imagined existed. When I refused to buy the new $800 bridesmaid dress she suddenly demanded, she deleted me from the group chat, and the next day I received a message from her fiancé that revealed the shocking truth. I was honored when Christina asked me to be her maid of honor. We'd been inseparable since sophomore year at State, where we bonded over terrible roommates and even worse dating choices. I'd seen her through 3 toxic relationships, a quarter-life crisis when she switched careers from marketing to graphic design, and the joyful tears when Brian proposed at the Skyview restaurant downtown after dating for 3 years. "You guys can wear anything turquoise," Christina had told us during our first bridesmaid meeting at Starbucks 6 months before the wedding. "As long as they're floor length and the same color family, I don't care about the style or where you get them. I'm not going to be one of those bridezillas who makes her friends spend a fortune." All 4 of us, me, Ashley, Jennifer, and Lisa, had found dresses we loved within our budgets. Mine was a simple, elegant number from Nordstrom Rack for $120 that actually looked good enough to wear again, a bridesmaid dress miracle. I'd already had it hemmed since I'm 5'2" and everything needs altering. As a single mom to my 5-year-old daughter Lily, I'd carefully budgeted for all the wedding expenses, the dress, the bachelorette weekend in Nashville, and the wedding gift. Every dollar mattered in my carefully planned monthly budget. Updated. Thanks for all the supportive comments on my last update. The situation has gotten even more twisted than I thought. Christina's mother has been pulling the strings behind the scenes this whole time. Should I show the screenshots to the other bridesmaids or keep them to myself until after the wedding? Christina had always been a bit dramatic. It was part of her charm. In college, she once called me sobbing at 2 a.m. because she got a B on a paper. During her first job, she had weekly meltdowns about her boss sabotaging her career. When Brian proposed, she changed her ring 3 times because the original wasn't Instagram-worthy enough. But she'd also been there for me through everything. When I unexpectedly got pregnant with Lily during my final year of nursing school, and my ex disappeared faster than free food at an office party, Christina let me crash on her couch for 3 months. She attended every one of Lily's birthday, parties with thoughtfully chosen gifts, and even babysat occasionally when I picked up extra hospital shifts. Despite her flair for drama, she had a good heart. The wedding planning had gone surprisingly smoothly at first. Christina and Brian had chosen the Lakeside Gardens venue, a gorgeous place with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. Her color scheme, turquoise and silver, complemented the natural setting. Pinterest boards were created, vendors booked, and RSVPs collected without major incidents. The only tension came from Christina's mother, Patricia. A former beauty queen with a permanently pursed expression, Patricia had definite opinions about what constituted a proper wedding. She'd criticized everything from the venue, outdoor elements so unpredictable, to the menu. Chicken options are for people who can't afford beef. Christina usually stood her ground, insisting this was her wedding, not her mother's do-over. So when Christina called an emergency bridesmaid meeting at Panera Bread 2 weeks before the wedding, I wasn't immediately concerned. Wedding jitters, last-minute table arrangement drama, or maybe another argument with her mother about the DJ's playlist. These were the typical crises I'd expected. I arrived 5 minutes early, as usual, and ordered my usual half a Mediterranean sandwich and chicken noodle soup. Ashley and Jennifer showed up together, followed by Lisa, who was perpetually running late. Christina arrived last, her expression tight in a way that instantly set off my internal alarms. She wasn't carrying her usual notebook filled with wedding checklists, but instead clutched an envelope like it contained state secrets. Christina placed the envelope in the center of the table with the dramatic flair of someone revealing evidence in a courtroom drama. "I received this anonymous letter yesterday," she announced, her voice trembling slightly. She pulled out a typed letter and began reading about how our bridesmaid dresses looked extremely cheap and mismatched, and would completely ruin her wedding photos. According to this mysterious well-wisher, our carefully chosen dresses would apparently cause guests to whisper about the obvious budget constraints and distract from your beautiful vision. I felt my cheeks burn with each sentence. When Christina finished reading, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "I've found a solution," she said, pulling out her phone to show us a designer bridesmaid dress from some fancy boutique I'd never heard of. "They're $800 each, but they can rush order them for next week delivery. I know it's last minute, but my wedding photos will be forever." The table went silent. $800 for a dress I'd wear exactly once, 2 weeks before the wedding. After I'd already spent $120 plus alterations on the dress we had all agreed on months ago. My monthly nurse's salary at Memorial Hospital was decent, but after rent, childcare for Lily, student loans, and the basics, I had exactly $267 in my discretionary spending fund for the month. I'd already stretched my budget to participate in all the pre-wedding events. The $350 Nashville bachelorette weekend had required me to pick up 2 extra night shifts. Christina, I said carefully, keeping my voice level, I've already spent money on the dress we agreed on. I simply can't afford another $800 right now. I glanced around the table for support. Ashley and Jennifer exchanged uncomfortable looks. Lisa stared intently at her iced tea. None of them said a word. It's my wedding, Christina said, her voice rising slightly. Don't you want me to have perfect memories? The letter writer is right. I saw the photos from Jennifer's birthday last weekend, and the dresses don't even look like the same color. They're all turquoise, I countered, pulling up a group photo on my phone. They're different styles, but the same color family, exactly like you requested. Christina's eyes narrowed. Well, now I'm requesting something different. This is the most important day of my life. I took a deep breath. 9 years of friendship made me choose my next words carefully. I explained that while I understood this was her special day, expecting us to spend $800 with 2 weeks' notice wasn't reasonable, especially given my financial situation as a single mom. Oh my God, Christina interrupted, her voice sharp. Here we go with the single mom card again. We all have expenses, Meg. I've bent over backward to keep costs down for you, but this one thing is important to me. The single mom card. As if my daughter was a get-out-of-jail-free pass I played for convenience, not an actual human I was solely responsible for. Something cold settled in my stomach as I looked at my supposed best friend. I explained that I wasn't playing a card but stating a financial reality. I simply couldn't afford this dress. I suggested we find a compromise. Ashley finally spoke, suggesting we look for similar dresses at a lower price point. Christina shook her head firmly, dismissing the idea. Look, I understand if some of you are budget constrained, she said, looking pointedly at me. Maybe I could help cover part of the cost. The suggestion, delivered with such condescension, felt like a slap. I'd worked my ass off to be financially independent, picking up extra shifts while juggling childcare and still managing to save a little each month. I didn't need or want Christina's charity, especially when it came with strings of obligation and superiority. I pointed out that we had all bought dresses according to the guidelines she gave us months ago. If she wanted specific dresses, that should have been communicated earlier, not 2 weeks before. Christina's face hardened. Well, this is what I need now. Everyone else seems to understand that. If you can't do this one thing for me, maybe you shouldn't be in the wedding party. The ultimatum hung in the air. 9 years of friendship balanced against an $800 dress I couldn't afford and a principle I wasn't willing to compromise. Maybe I shouldn't, I said quietly. Christina gathered her things with jerky movements, tears streaming down her face. She muttered something about needing bridesmaids who support her unconditionally and that this wedding was stressful enough without people making it about themselves. As she stormed out, followed quickly by the others, I sat alone at the Panera table, surrounded by half-eaten meals and the wreckage of what I'd thought was an unshakable friendship. That evening, my phone buzzed with notifications that I'd been removed from the Christina's wedding party group chat. The final message before my removal. Megan's out. Let's coordinate on the new dresses tomorrow. I spent the night alternating between anger, hurt, and doubt. Was I being unreasonable? Should I just put the dress on a credit card and deal with the consequences later? But every time I considered giving in, I remembered Christina's dismissive tone and the way she'd weaponized my single motherhood against me. The next morning, as I was getting Lily ready for kindergarten, my phone pinged with a message from an unexpected source. Brian, Christina's fiancé. Megan, I need to talk to you about yesterday. Christina doesn't know I'm messaging you. My heart raced as I opened it. I saw something last night that I can't ignore. Christina was up late in her office working on seating arrangements, but I walked in on her typing that anonymous letter herself. Her mom was on speakerphone directing her on what to write. Patricia has been insisting for weeks that the different bridesmaid dresses would look tacky in photos and pushing Christina to upgrade the look. The whole anonymous letter thing was a scheme to make it seem like an outside opinion rather than her own. I confronted her, and she broke down crying, saying her mom wouldn't stop pressuring her. I'm horrified and don't know what to do. Christina's always been a people pleaser with her mom, but this crosses a line. I stared at the message for so long that Lily tugged on my sleeve asking if we were late for school. Attached to the message was a photo. Partially visible on Christina's computer screen was the same letter she'd dramatically presented at Panera, with Patricia clearly on speakerphone in the corner of the image. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. Not just the lie about the letter, but the willingness to emotionally manipulate her closest friends and financially strain me specifically, all to please her mother's superficial concerns about wedding photos. Updated, the plot thickens. Brian just called me. He and Christina had a massive fight after he confronted her about the fake letter. She's now claiming her mother made her do it and is threatening to postpone the wedding entirely. Meanwhile, the other bridesmaids are clueless about what's really happening. Should I forward them Brian's message or stay out of the drama completely? After dropping Lily off at school, I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at Brian's message. My finger hovered over the forward button, tempted to send the evidence to the other bridesmaids. They deserved to know they were being manipulated into spending $800 based on a fabricated concern. But something stopped me. Despite everything, I didn't want to blow up Christina's life or wedding. Our friendship deserved at least one final conversation. I took a screenshot of Brian's message and texted Christina, "We need to talk, in person, today." She responded immediately, "I'm busy with wedding details." I sent the screenshot without comment. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, Starbucks, noon. When I arrived, Christina was already there, hunched over a venti something or other, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked up as I slid into the seat across from her. "Brian wasn't supposed to tell you," she said flatly. Not, "I'm sorry for lying." Not, "I made a terrible mistake." Just annoyance at being caught. I asked her why she would fabricate a letter to manipulate me and the others into spending money we might not have, money I could be using for Lily's education fund or our rent. She stared into her coffee cup, explaining how her mother had been relentlessly pressuring her about the bridesmaid dresses, insisting they looked cheap and mismatched. She described the constant micromanagement of every wedding detail and her desperation to make everyone happy. "Everyone except me," I said quietly. "And the others who are about to spend $800 they might not have either, all based on a lie." "They've already ordered the dresses," Christina admitted, not meeting my eyes, "after you left." I sat back, feeling strangely calm. I asked if she had told them the truth. She shook her head. "I can't. They'd hate me." "They'll hate you more if they find out later." Christina finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. She explained that everything was falling apart. Brian was furious and suggesting they postpone the wedding so she could get her priorities straight, while her mother kept calling hourly for updates on the dresses. Despite my anger, a tiny part of me felt sympathy. Christina had always struggled with standing up to her mother, whose approval was like water in a desert, scarce and desperately needed. "You fix this by telling the truth," I said firmly. "To everyone. No more manipulation, no more lies. Will you be there when I tell them?" she asked, sounding smaller than I'd ever heard her. I hesitated, then nodded. "But not to help you, to make sure you actually do it." That evening, we met the other bridesmaids at Christina's apartment. Brian was there too, standing apart with arms crossed. As Christina confessed everything, the fake letter, her mother's pressure, the truth about the dresses, I watched the others' expressions change from confusion to hurt to anger. The bridesmaids were understandably upset. Jennifer and Ashley had already spent $800 on credit cards they were still paying off from previous expenses. Lisa remained quiet, but her clenched jaw spoke volumes. Christina, to her credit, didn't make excuses. She explained that she'd already called the boutique, and they'd agreed to accept returns since the dresses hadn't been altered. She offered to cover any restocking fees. The question of what would happen with the wedding hung in the air. Brian made it clear that their future depended on whether Christina was ready to set boundaries with her mother and be honest with the people who cared about her. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken questions about loyalty, trust, and the foundations of both friendships and marriages. The wedding happened. Not without drama. Patricia nearly had an aneurysm when Christina told her the original dresses were staying. But it happened. In the photos, our 4 different turquoise dresses looked exactly as they should: complimentary, personal, and chosen with care. I stood beside Christina as her maid of honor, our friendship bruised but healing. The week before the wedding, she'd met me for coffee and handed me an envelope, not with a fake anonymous letter, but with a real handwritten apology and a check for the cost of my dress alterations. "I don't want your money," I'd told her, pushing it back. "It's not about the money," she'd insisted. "It's about recognizing what I did wrong. Please accept it as a symbol that I'm trying to change." More significant than the check was what came. Next, Christina had started therapy to work on her relationship with her mother and her people-pleasing tendencies. The wedding incident had been a wake-up call about how easily she'd compromised her integrity and friendships to avoid conflict. At the reception, I watched Christina deliberately step away from her mother's criticism about the centerpieces with a new polite firmness. "Thanks for your opinion, Mom, but we're happy with our choices." Small steps, but meaningful ones. Brian caught my eye from across the room and raised his glass slightly, a silent acknowledgement of his part in bringing the truth to light, even when it had been difficult. As for me, the experience reinforced something I'd learned when becoming a single mother. True friendship isn't about unconditional support for whatever someone wants. It's about loving someone enough to hold them accountable to be their best self, even when it's uncomfortable. We're still friends, Christina and I. Different now, more honest, more aware of our boundaries and values. Sometimes healing a friendship means letting it break first, so you can rebuild it stronger. Updated. 6 months later, Christina and I are in a much better place. She's still in therapy and has created healthy boundaries with her mother. The wedding. Photos turned out beautifully with our original dresses. Have you ever had to confront a friend about their toxic behavior even when it risked your friendship?